Okay, hello class. We are jumping ahead to chapter 40, where we are talking about how animals evolved into the forms that we have and how our different forms or different shapes of our body allow us to function in our different roles. So here you might see a penguin, and they have a body that's been adapted for swimming and a body that's been adapted for living in the cold. So if you stop and think about their body, how is their body adapted for them to swim? How is their body adapted for them to survive the cold? Okay, after you've thought about this penguin's body for a minute, I want you to think about this jackrabbit. It lives in a place where it can get very hot. What features of this jackrabbit allow it to keep from overheating? You might notice it has large ears that allow it to have very good hearing, but those ears also could be involved in helping it stop from overheating. Okay, so both of these questions, both talking about the penguin's body and the jackrabbit's body, both are discussed in your textbook. So I hope you've read that chapter and you already have an idea, but if you're feeling kind of lost, please make sure you go back and read your book to talk about kind of that introduction about how animal form and animal function are related. So all animals have to do certain things to be able to survive. We have to be able to obtain nutrients and obtain oxygen so that we're able to have energy to grow. We have to be able to fight off infection so that we're able to survive. And then once we survive, need to be able to produce offspring. That is what any animal has to be able to do to keep their species existing. When we're talking about animals' form, we're talking about anatomy, which is biological structure. So, anatomy is talking about what bones do you have, what muscles do you have, what different organ systems do you have. And different animals have different anatomy to them, but structure and function are correlated. So, by looking at anatomy, you also can often get clues about physiology or biological function. One example would be these three animals: a seal, a penguin, and a tuna. So we have a mammal, a bird, and a fish, three different animals, but they have very similar body shapes. And you can kind of begin to imagine how this body shape would be adapted for an animal that needs to be able to swim quickly in the water. So they have this shape that's called fusiform. It's kind of this, tapered at the ends, wider in the middle, kind of flattened down oval shape. That kind of lets it have less drag as it goes through the water. There are different abilities to that allows it to be able to swim faster, be able to obtain food sources better, and to escape predators better, to be able to then have more children, and that feature will be evolutionarily advantageous. There are certain constraints of the environment that limit the bodies of animals. So, for these three animals, a seal, a penguin, and tuna that swim, they need to be able to have bodies that allow them to be hydrodynamic, so that they are able to function through that water system. There are also rules about body size, about mass. Your textbook does a good discussion of those, so feel free to read your book about that. Convergent evolution, which is when three animals of different lineages, different clades, end up with the same body plan. That's convergent evolution. It often gives similar adaptations for diverse animals. So a fish, a bird, and a mammal all end up with the same body plan because they're facing that same challenge of how do they stay hydrodynamic? How do they swim faster? How do they escape predators? How do they survive in that similar environment? So that convergent evolution favors them having similar body plans. So all animals have to be able to exchange nutrients, waste, and gases with the environment. This is going to limit the body size of animals. So some organisms like an amoeba, not an animal, but an organism like an amoeba, is one cell, so it has sufficient surface area just in its cell membrane that it can just through its cell membrane be able to exchange gases, be able to obtain nutrients, be able to do the exchanges it needs to do. A lot of multicellular organisms, though, this exchange needs to occur. Some of these organisms exchange will occur over cell membranes. So like this hydra, that's only going to be a couple of cells thick. It's still able to do that over its cell membranes. But a lot of organisms, once we become multicellular, those cell membranes are going to be far away from the environment. And so you can't just wait for diffusion to allow that to happen. So usually our cells are going to need access to an aqueous environment. So in our bodies, we have an interstitial fluid, which is a fluid that is surrounding the tissues. Um, and then these animals that are only 2 cells thick are able to just use diffusion. So a flat animal like a tapeworm, a lot of their cells are in direct contact with the environment. In a more complex organism like us, we have more compact masses of cells, so all of our cells are not in direct contact with the environment. So we have evolutionary adaptations like specialized, branched, and folded structures that give more exchange with the environment. So I think of like the branching of our respiratory tract or the folding of our digestive tract that allow that suitable exchange with the environment to obtain oxygen or obtain nutrients. We already talked about interstitial fluid and having a complex body plan, developing structures like a digestive system or like a respiratory system allow an animal in a variable environment to keep a stable internal environment. So we can keep a steady flow of blood sugar or we can keep a steady flow of oxygen through our body. Okay, can you think of a body system used by human cells to exchange materials with the environment? I mentioned 2 as we were discussing our last slide, although we're going to have even more than that we use to exchange with our environment. Okay, let's just review from last semester. You should remember that cells are the basic unit of life. So cells would be showing up here. Tissues are similar cells that have a common function. So cells group together to form a tissue. Those tissues group together to form an organ that has a common function. So tissues could be like connective tissue or muscle tissue. Organs would be like a heart or a stomach. And then these group together to form organ systems. This would be like your digestive system or your circulatory system. Organ systems are built up to make organisms. This would be a person. Different organ systems in mammals. You do need to be able to describe. If I say, what does this system do? You can tell me. Or if I say, what system is made of these parts? Or what system does this function? So you need to be able to tell me the organ system, its components, and its function. So this slide right here is probably, a couple dozen flashcards worth of information to be able to put together. Your digestive system is your mouth, your pharynx, your esophagus, stomach, intestines, liver, pancreas, and your anus. And the role of this function, or the function of this system, is to break down and absorb nutrients. The things you eat, get the nutrients out of them. Next is the circulatory system. This would be your heart, blood vessels, and blood. And this system will transport materials through the body. Your respiratory system would be your lungs, your trachea, and other breathing tubes that move gases in and out of the blood. Immune and lymphatic, these are 2 different systems, but we're going to look at them together in this chapter. So immune and lymphatic systems include bone marrow, lymph nodes, thymus, spleen, and lymph vessels. These help your body fight infections. Excretory system involves kidneys, ureters, urinary bladder, and urethra, and these help remove waste from your body. Endocrine system would be your pituitary, thyroid, pancreas, adrenal, other glands that make hormones, and these help control your body using hormones. Your reproductive system would be ovaries or testes and other associated organs that make babies. Nervous system is your brain, spinal cord, nerves, and other sensory organs, so eyes, nose, senses, receive information, interpret, and produce responses. Your integumentary system is skin and its derivatives. This includes hair, claws, and sweat glands. This helps protect the body and regulate body temperature. Skeletal system is your skeleton, which involves bones, tendons, ligaments, and cartilage. This helps support the body. And your muscular system would be your skeletal muscles that provide movement and provide support. Okay, some of these systems we're going to look at in more depth through the rest of this semester. If this is something that is very interesting to you, I would suggest taking an A&P class where the entire semester, 2 semesters actually, is devoted to learning about how all these different body systems function together. Okay, so what is the purpose of the endocrine system? You could expect me to give you a question on a quiz or exam. What is the purpose of any of those body systems we just asked about. What body system includes bones, tendons, ligaments, and cartilage? So again, you could expect me, what body system involves? Fill in the blank with body parts, and you should be able to tell me what body part that is. Okay, that's the end of our first lecture for this chapter. We're going to talk about different kinds of animal tissues when we come back in our next lecture video. So I will see you soon. Please let me know if you have any questions. Bye.